what's the use of two strong legs if you only run away? And what use is the finest voice when you've nothing good to say? What good is strength and muscle if you only push and shove? And what's the use of two good ears when you can't hear those you love? It's not just what you're born with, it's what you choose to bear. And it's not how big your share is, but how much you can share. And it's not the fights you dreamed of, but those you really fought. It's not what you've been given, it's what you do with what you've got. Yeah, it's not just what you're born with, it's what you choose to bear. And it's not how big your share is, but how much you can share. And it's not the fights you dreamed of, but those you really fought. It's not what you've been given, it's what you do with what you've got.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to Seeds of Revolution. And today we are speaking to another recipient of Camus's 2025 microgrant project. We are speaking to the Black Oak Collective and Ewar, who is a member of that collective. Thanks for joining us, Ewar.
Thanks for having me. Love talking about zines.
Absolutely. Let's talk about zines, and let's start by talking about the Black Oak Collective. Could you just give our listeners an idea? Where are you? What are you doing? What's it all about?
Yeah, so we're a very small, closed collective in Hamilton, Ontario. Um, and we wanted to get a social space together to have the larger community join us. Have a very, very small space on James Street North, the other side of the tracks, so I call it James Street North North. Um, and we've been going since, I think, May 1st of this year. Um,
Oh, so it's
we've been
brand new. Your collective just
We're
started in
super
2025.
shiny, brand new, yes. I mean, like, the people on the collective, we've known each other for a really, really super long time. Um, so it's really kinda easy for us to organize together. But yeah, the space is super new. We've been trying to put it together since, like, I think October of last year. It does take a while to, like, search out a space, figure out what exactly we wanna do there, but yeah. We've got a space that's open, every week for open hours on Sundays, 1 to 4, if you wanna join us in Hamilton. And then we also are open for, various events that we've got going on. So everything from, like, film screenings to discussion groups. We've got, a French conversation group going on. Got reading groups. And then also we have workshops, like, people that are doing workshops, like, when they're traveling through Canada, they'll stop by the Black Oak and do their thing for us.
How did your collective get started?
Like I said, we've known each other for a really long time, and we saw that there was like a gap in what Hamilton needed in the anarchist scene. And we decided we wanted to do a social space and have a place for us to be in the public so we can reach out to folks that like don't know the ideas as well or are unfamiliar with the anarchist ideas, and have a place that isn't our living rooms to meet in, you know?
What was the thought process behind a social space? Because a lot of the collectives that we've spoken to, our collective here in Victoria, tends to be more of a bookshop or an info space. Why did you all decide to focus more on a social space?
Um, it's a really good question. Well, in the Black Oak, we do have the zine library, and then we also have a book lending library, which is actively like lending books every week, which is wonderful. I think the reason why we wanted to focus on a social space is because there's no explicitly anarchist spaces in Hamilton. Also, they're very rare to find in Toronto. Um, Places like Montreal have 3 or 4.
Mhm.
And it just seems like it's a great place to start for folks to learn about ideas, have projects grow from, if you know what I mean.
What, and maybe you can't answer this question, but I'd appreciate your best guess.
Yeah.
What accounts do you think for the disparity between the number of anarchist spaces in Ontario versus the number of anarchist spaces in a place like Montreal?
Oh, wow. That's a really big question. Um, Well, I can tell you for one, in Southern Ontario, and maybe in uh, parts of BC also, it's difficult to get money together to be able to pay the rent on a commercial space. Um, and I don't know if that's the same in Montreal, but that's one of the barriers that we face. We're very lucky to have a very large community that is supporting us. We also have various other grants that have been given to us that are supporting us. But what, mm, what, hmm, I think when it comes to being organized enough to have a social space and like do something this complex, it like takes a very solid base of people to be able to do it. And the fact that like the small group of us have known each other for some of us maybe 15, 20 years.
Mhm.
That's what's really gotten us together. I'm still trying to go back to your question. What's the difference? Yeah, I don't think I can go beyond that. I think that it's a very good question. I think that we should probably be asking ourselves.
And I'd like to get into a little bit about what anarchism means for your collective. Before I get there, though, I'd love to know a little bit more about your personal journey. How did you come to anarchism? And I also would like to know what anarchism means for you, because for so many of us, it means slightly different things.
Oh, totally, right? Um, well, I can tell you where it all began.
Yes, please. On a
Uh,
dark and stormy night, I
on a
assume.
dark and stormy night in Montreal. No, it was definitely, hmm, I'm trying to think because I can tell you that it started at Montreal Book Fair. I started meeting people that like shared the same ideas as me. We were all reading the same crime think books. Um, I think is it Days of War, Nights of Love? Is that the book? I always get the
Sounds
title wrong.
familiar.
Yeah, that one. I think we were all reading that book and like having our thoughts validated. So that and then there was a large group of punks and anarchists hanging out in Guelph, Ontario. Forged some connections with them, and this is where a lot of like my long-term friendships came from. Uh, and I think a lot of people, maybe there's a few people listening to your podcast that know of Guelph, Ontario. Maybe you don't, but
I don't.
yeah, back in the early 2000s, there was like a big like punk scene, like with house shows, um, but like with bands coming through that were like politically oriented. Like, do you know what I mean? Like they
Mhm.
weren't just like F the government, but they were also like following through with that. Do you know what I mean? Like they were like distributing zines and making art that was also related to all these ideas that we believe in. So yeah, that's where I started. That's how I got into anarchy.
And what kind of, I guess, what kind of an anarchist space has Black Oak evolved into? It sounds like it's focusing more on, I know maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds like it's focusing more on social aspects and interpersonal aspects and less on, organized political actions, or is that completely not the case?
Well, there's no explicit organizing that happens out of Black Oak.
Mhm.
Um, that doesn't mean that we don't support the ideas that come from that. Um, we're more or less a space where people can come and find out about what's going on, share ideas, talk about it, engage with each other. Um, we're super new. So like we're still trying to figure out where we're going. All we know is that like we just want to have a lot of events, a variety of things that happen, kind of like whatever the community wants to bring to us
Mhm.
to have going on. It has to align with it's like any kind of event has to align with like anarchist ideals, and then also be free. We don't charge for our events, but yeah,
One thing I noticed on your website, which I thought was pretty funny, and I just was wondering if you could explain it a little bit more.
sure.
Y- On the website, you talk about what Black Oak is about and what the space is for. You talk about how law enforcement agents aren't welcome in the space, which
Mhm.
understandable, and neither are working journalists. without
Oh, yes.
without active consent, which made me chuckle. I was wondering if you maybe could tell me a little bit more about your understandable antipathy towards working journalists.
Yeah. That's actually been brought up a few times. It's kind of well, I think we all kind of understand that once you put an idea out there, especially in mainstream media, you don't have any control over it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think in the past, anarchists in Hamilton have been burned by that.
Mm.
So we just put that on the list because we don't want that. We're there for like for sharing of ideas. We're not there to for a news story.
Going back to the idea of law enforcement, have you faced active opposition, any sort of suppression from law enforcement in Hamilton? Do they know you exist? Do they care that you exist?
Yeah, in Hamilton, it has been a big issue in the past. Not particularly for Black Oak since we've only been open for a few months. I'm pretty sure they know that we exist. Um, but in the past, Hamilton Police Services have been, yes, they know who we are. Um, I think a quick Google for anybody would kind of figure out what's happened in the past in Hamilton, and we don't think that the police have forgotten.
Mm.
So we're pretty cautious about that. Yeah.
I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about how you think Black Oak fits into the larger national or international anarchist project. Is it much more focused on being hyper-local and organizing a community and providing for a social community only in Hamilton? Or do you see yourselves as part of a larger anarchist effort?
Um, we do see ourselves as a larger anarchist effort. We do want to contribute to the larger project, but I think it's really important to make sure that we like grow what's happening in Hamilton a little bit bigger. We do have folks come through. We've only been open for May again, so it's only been a few months. Um, but actually, on Tuesday, we're pretty excited about the Red Road to the West Bank fundraiser.
I interviewed Franklin and Clifton about the Red Road to the West Bank.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the way we want to connect like newer folks to folks like Frank, who's been around for a really long time doing amazing work. And so they can learn that like this isn't just a small thing, this is a very large thing. We want to make sure that people are connected to that.
You are a stone's throw from the United States.
Yes.
What's that like, especially these days? Now, I'm asking as an American citizen, a recent immigrant to Canada,
Mhm.
so I'm not completely operating with no background, uh, but I am curious, has being an anarchist changed, especially in the last 8 months or the last, 8 years with Trump coming on the scene? You now have an immigration crackdown. You now have militarization of the border. Given your geographic location, what do you see? What is the impact of political reality today on your space, on your lives, on your relationships?
That's a huge question. And you're right, Hamilton is very close to the Niagara Falls border there. Um, so I'm just going to give you a real quick, short one. Borders have been a problem for anarchists for a really long time, and those same the same borders are still a problem for a lot of individuals in our groups. Um, to be quite honest, a lot of people have just stopped going across the border. Mhm. And it's hard to navigate conversations when the just like the looming problems are just so big. I think we've just really been focusing on like, hmm, I'm just gonna have to tell you that like there isn't much of a change because we haven't really focused on the border. I know we're really close to it, but it hasn't been much of a change for what we've been going through.
I guess what I was also trying to get at is, do you have relationships with anarchists south of the border that have been affected in any way by recent events?
Not I wouldn't say locally, like, for example, Buffalo.
Yeah.
I don't think we have many connections with Buffalo. There is some, but yeah, no, we don't. It's that's not something that I've actually even concerned myself with. It's
I
too
mean, listen,
overwhelming.
if the answer is Trump hasn't really affected our day-to-day lives, then, God bless.
That's not true, though. I mean, no, it's not true, though. I mean,
Yeah.
like, it's a steelworking town. Like, people are losing jobs. It's awful. But personally, I really, it's hard.
What do you see, since you and the collective just started Black Oaks a few months ago, where do you see the future of anarchism progressing in Canada? Maybe in Ontario and then in Canada as a whole. Is it Are you hoping for more of the kind of local organization as represented by Black Oaks? Do you think that there's a chance for more national or even international coordination among anarchists?
Well, having Black Oak, a social space, making connections with other folks, like, for example, in Montreal and Kingston and Toronto and Guelph, um, it just makes a solid base for us to um, go from there. When I originally was getting into anarchy, like I was telling you, like the punk scene in Guelph, like there was already an international connection. Um, and I still think there is an international connection. It's just hopping borders is still a little bit hard for folks.
Sure.
But I do think that um having spaces like Black Oak is really important to be able to have a place to go with your ideas and not feel so isolated.
Going back to your description of Hamilton, you were talking about Hamilton as a steel town that I assume
Mhm.
has been dramatically impacted
Yeah.
by US policies and tariffs. One of, in my own very strictly personal observations, one of the limitations of anarchism seems to be that we tend to be a group of people that come from certain milieus, like an academic milieu or a punk milieu or an educational milieu, not so much from a blue collar labor milieu. And I'm wondering if anarchism in Hamilton has forged any connections with those classic, labor groups, steel unions, steel workers, that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah, there has been, in the past, there has been connections with, unions in Hamilton. I am a steward at my workplace. I know many anarchists that are also stewards in their workplaces. Um, and I think in Hamilton, yes, there, like I said in the past, groups that have been like connected to working class politics. Literally yesterday in the space, we were talking about like where are those people now? Like I'm still here. I'm still thinking about those things and bringing those things to my workplace. And I think those people are still out there. It's just that we have to maintain a connection or find a connection again. Um, we are having a anarchist book fair at September 27th. Come on down and join us.
I think
Um,
that's a week after the Victoria Anarchist Book Fair.
yeah, yeah.
Our listeners
Um,
can go from one to the other, no problem at
yeah. Um, but we have it in the WAC, which is the Workers Arts and Heritage Center, which is a place. I don't know if you're familiar with it at all, but it's a museum for uh, literally what it is, workers' arts and heritage. So there's everything from like banners from 1909 for unions who marched in Labor Day to like modern art that is created by workers about workers. It's really awesome, and so we forged a connection with the WAC. So yeah, we're really excited to be there. So there is still like a thread of connection with the working people of Hamilton. It's just, we've gotta make it a little stronger.
what do you envision Black Oak growing into if you have a concrete vision at this point? Might be very premature because you all just started. But,
Yeah.
if you had a whole bunch of money and a whole bunch of time, do you have a fantasy about what Black Oak could or should become?
Well, yes, like you said, I think we've kind of see the space that we have now as our starter space. Uh, um, we we have signed a lease for a number of years that we're kind of locked into, and it's a very small space, but it's kind of manageable for the size of the collective. From there, it would be really awesome if we could get a larger space to be able to house things like maybe a like a print shop, or maybe like a silk screen shop, like, do you know, like bigger things, like, so we could like have the means of reproducing things. um yeah, or maybe something along the lines of a commercial kitchen, like, you know, anarchist things.
One thing I've noticed, and maybe I have a unique perspective doing the podcast through Camus, is I've been fortunate enough to interview lots of different anarchist organizations throughout Canada, and we all don't seem to have very much. We don't seem to spend a lot of time cooperating with each other. And I don't necessarily mean that as a criticism. Like you said, we have rent to pay, we got union meetings we have to go to. Some of us have kids we have to take
Yeah.
care of. I mean, life is a lot. And adding anything to our plates, which are already overcrowded, is already a tall order. So I certainly don't mean this as a criticism, but I'm curious why you think we seem to exist as anarchists in Canada. We seem to exist as more atomized collectives than maybe we could be in another universe or in an alternate reality. I just see another reality where, Black Oak, you have Dira in Montreal, you have
Hmm.
Camus in Victoria, you have Spartacus in Vancouver. I just
Yeah.
see an alternate reality where we would spend a lot more time talking and organizing together, and we don't. And again, I don't necessarily say that as a criticism, just as observation. And I'm wondering if you could maybe shine some light on why you think that is, or if you have any hopes to make that a little bit different in the future.
It's another big question you got there. um
Next interview, I'll only ask you small questions. I'll ask you what your favorite color is and what kind
Next
you like.
interview, yeah, favorite color, black. um
Well, you're an
um
anarchist. That was a gimme.
Uh, Staying connected. Mm. So I've been doing this for since my late 20s, and now I'm in my mid 40s. I got a lot of stuff going on. Like I mm,
And maybe it's just that simple. I mean, maybe we're all just too busy to do more than we're already doing.
well, no, I wasn't in reference to like the anarchist things that I do, and I think you're kind of right. I think we do need to open it up to new people and make sure that new people have, like, because I think that's one of the problems is that like we're all kind of siloed and we all kind of just use the same connections, and I think we got to open ourselves up to larger newer connections. I think.
Mhm.
I was referring to the fact that I help with the layout of certain days. Do you know certain days, the calendar?
No.
You will. I think it's been going for 25 years. It's a calendar that's been going. It's not a explicitly anarchist project, but it is an abolitionist project, like a prison abolitionist project, where there's an inside and an outside collective. Inside prisoners, outside folks on the outside that are helping them create this. And I'm using that as an example because some deadlines are coming up and I'm just thinking about like, oh, I've got to do all this work, but it's also helping me stay connected to other people that have the same ideas specifically about prison abolition. Um, that I'm like, I don't particularly know them very well, but I share things with them. We share files. We communicate every day. Like, oh, we got to edit this. We got to do that. And I think if folks want to get involved, like that's what they have to do is like try to get in on a long-term project and meet the new people, although it would be difficult, but it's a dream that I had when I first started hanging out in Guelph, and I was like, "Wow, what's that cool calendar? I wanna work on it." And here I am full it's 4 or 5 years into, like, helping them make create it. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's, like, for me personally, is that, like, I don't feel disconnected, but I do know that, like, people that are new to the ideas do, and I want those people to connect. So, like, that means going to the Montreal Book Fair because that's the largest one, coming to the Hamilton, going to the Victoria one, getting there, meeting the people, hanging out, doing the events, doing the workshops, learning about all the things. And then I think that would help people feel less siloed and less, you know what I mean? Drifting off into space.
Has there ever been talk of sort of a, Canadian-wide conference to try and get people together in the same room? Because I agree with you. I think going to each other's book fairs and each other's spaces is a fantastic idea.
Mm.
Also, I'm just wondering if maybe we can organize more directly and more explicitly with some sort of, effort to all be in the same room talking about the same thing at the same time.
Next year, you got to come to Montreal.
Next year, I'll come to Montreal. Just in
Next year, come to
general, or are
Montreal.
we gonna?
Oh, no, what I mean, like, next year, come to the Montreal Book Fair.
Yeah.
It's this year it rained, so it's a little poopy. But usually it's like huge affair. Everybody from the Wobblies to Funa Bombs is there. Like, it's I would think if what you want is a national kind of conference, Montreal is the place to start.
Yeah.
That's where I made a large amount of friends, like, from coast to coast. Um, yeah, I think if that's a great place to start. I mean, I wish I could say that about Hamilton Anarchist Book Fair, but we're getting there.
You'll be there.
I
Next year.
don't know if I want the headache of the Montreal Anarchist Book Fair.
That's true. With what's the line? Is either Star Trek or Star Wars? Somebody's gonna yell at me for getting this wrong.
Oh, no.
With great talent comes great responsibility. With great responsibility comes great. I forget. I'm butchering the source and the quotes.
Okay, somebody will tell you about it.
Somebody will tell me about it. Before we go, I wanted to ask you, and I know the answer because I read it on your website, but I find
Mhm.
it so beautiful, and I would love for you to speak to it yourself as a member of the collective. Why the collective is calling itself the Black Oak Collective.
Joel, I was not the one that came up with that.
Well, but you know why. Even if you didn't come up with it, you still know why. I think
Um,
I think what you named your collective after is very beautiful, and I think our listeners
oh,
would agree.
thank you. Yeah, well, like, I gotta go to the About page to be able to read it. Because I read it a few times, and when someone suggested Black Oak, I was like, "Oh, yes." Um Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite beautiful.
It is really beautiful. I understood it as, like, as a endangered tree, and that isn't you can't find that much anymore, and we wanted to be named after something that, like, on the surface sounds, you know, uh, not threatening. But then, like, when you think about it a little deeper, it means something.
Mhm.
And yeah, I wish I could give you a way better answer. I'm a plant person, not a tree person.
But
Uh,
you also the website also talks about how the black oaks are very resilient and survive at wildfires and
oh yeah, that's
provide
us.
nutritious
Hamilton
sources of food.
anarchists.
Yeah,
That's us. We've been through a lot in Hamilton, Ontario, and we're still here. We're still, like, sharing words with people, and by words I mean, like, the printed word, but then also discussions and mm, gathering around the same ideas. If Yeah. Yeah.
great. If people wanna know more, where can they go? I will link to the website, but other than the website, do y'all have Instagram? Do you have,
So
GoFundMe, anything like that we can link to?
we don't have Instagram. Um, the only way that you can kind of follow what's going on is by visiting the space. Sundays 1 to 4 if you're in Hamilton, or if you're in Southern Ontario, come on down and visit us. We're there every Sunday. And then you can also search the username blackoak.492, because our address is 492 in James Street North. You can follow that user on Signal. You can just reach out and say hello. We won't answer back, but then you'll be able to see our stories, and then we post events. I know that's a really weird way to do it, but we're trying it out because we really do want to avoid social media, because it can just turn into a mire. So yeah, follow us on Signal. Come on down if you can make it.
Great. Well, Ewar and the Black Oak Collective, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And I will definitely be visiting you sometime in the future. I want to check the space
That
out.
would be awesome.
Yeah. So we will link to the website. We will put the Signal in the show notes. And other than that, thank you very much, my friend. I really appreciate you being on Seeds of Revolution.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If Jesus Christ came back today like you threaten he will, which poor group of people do you think that he would kill? And who would Jesus choose to starve if you gave him the chance? And if there was a genocide, would he take a neutral stance? Who would Jesus bomb? Tell me, who would Jesus bomb? Would it be kids in Palestine, or how about Vietnam? Would Jesus bomb the atheists, the Muslims, or the Jews? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? Would he say it's complicated and there's sinners on both sides? Or would he say that some people, they just deserve to die? If Jesus Christ rose from the dead and on a sidewalk slept, would you extend your hand to him or just watch where you stepped? Who would Jesus bomb? Tell me, who would Jesus bomb? Would it be kids in Palestine, or how about Vietnam? Would Jesus bomb the atheists, the Muslims, or the Jews? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? Would Jesus hate the gay folk, the queer folk, or the trans? Would he suggest they end their lives according to God's plans? Would Jesus tell a homeless man to get a fucking job, or turn his back on the poor? Would Jesus be a snob? Who would Jesus bomb? Tell me, who would Jesus bomb? Would it be kids in Palestine, or how about Vietnam? Would Jesus bomb the atheists, the Muslims, or the Jews? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? Would Jesus build a border wall? Would Jesus drive a tank? Would Jesus be a landlord? Would Jesus run a bank? Would Jesus Christ feel safe in his skin if he came to your town? And would you still believe in him if you found out he was brown? Who would Jesus bomb? Tell me, who would Jesus bomb? Would it be kids in Palestine, or how about Vietnam? Would Jesus bomb the atheists, the Muslims, or the Jews? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? Yeah, who would Jesus bomb? Tell me, who would Jesus bomb? Would it be kids in Palestine, or how about Vietnam? Would Jesus bomb the atheists, the Muslims, yourself, well,